Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to the MCAT Club. This is our weekly call for Monday, December 16th, 2013. My name is Don Osborne. I am the host of the MCAT Club. Your favorite holiday is fast upon us, so I hope you have a great holiday and that you get to spend time with your loved ones. In case you haven't heard before, the MCAT Club is the place to go for up-to-date information about the MCAT, studying for the MCAT prep techniques, and we even answer your MCAT-related questions live here on the call. You can find the MCAT Club at INQUARTA.com as well as on Facebook, and we're on YouTube, and I'm on Twitter, and Google Plus, and whatever the next favorite thing is going to be. As a medical school admissions expert and coach, I work with amazing students who really want to get into medical school, but they might be stuck where they feel uncertain about parts of their application, and they really want to understand how to position themselves, how to package themselves and market themselves to medical schools. So my job is to help you become a much better version of yourself with regard to your medical school application process. And as such, I promise to be the most hopeful, helpful, encouraging, uplifting advisor that you'll ever meet. So, as you know, the MCAT is undergoing some quite massive changes. And in only 12 short months, students will be facing a much longer and a very different test than the one that we see today. So I want this call to be the first of a two-part series really talking through how to rethink and prepare for MCAT 2015. Today, I'll be spending a little bit of time talking about the basics of critical thinking, and then next week, I've invited my special guest, Kevin De La Plante of the Critical Thinker Academy, and Kevin will be talking with me about some more advanced critical thinking strategies, and I hope I can get him to get you guys access to a little discount on his online courses on critical thinking on both Udemy and at the Critical Thinker Academy. Okay, so that's what I'm looking forward to next week. But today, I promised that I would go through some of the basics of critical thinking. So I want to start by, if you will, simplifying, the world of critical thinking, critical reasoning, logic and reasoning into those pieces that are much more typical of MCAT, verbal reasoning, tactics, and strategy. So let's get right into it. So first, let me introduce three different kinds of reasoning. There's something called symbolic logic, and you may have taken a class in symbolic logic like I did. So to refresh you, symbolic logic is the application of symbols to the forms of logical argument, meaning you kind of take an algebraic approach to logical reasoning. You find a particular piece of logical reasoning. It's a pretty standardized piece, the form that you can rely upon. So you stick a variable, you stick a value, some kind of a symbol in place there so that it can hold, that symbol holds, represents what that particular piece of reasoning is. MCAT does not really rely upon symbolic logic, nor does it demand a symbolic logic approach from you, so that one's easy to get rid of. The other types I want to talk about today are deductive reasoning and inductive reasoning. So let's start with deductive reasoning. I call deductive reasoning the Sherlock Holmes technique. You may have heard of differential diagnosis or DDX in medicine. Okay, well, the Sherlock Holmes technique, deductive reasoning, is really built in the same way as differential diagnosis. In fact, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, the writer who wrote the Sherlock Holmes series, was a doctor. So his reasoning system relied very much on his training as a physician. So deductive reasoning means this. Pretend that you're Sherlock Holmes and you've got 10 suspects. You systematically eliminate each suspect one at a time until whoever's left over, no matter how unlikely or improbable it is the guilty party. Now, and just as an aside for your own curiosity, differential diagnosis is a little bit different because, of course, there's multiple possible causes for any particular symptom. So, what you're really trying to do is you're trying to eliminate as many different possible categories of illness so you can just whittle it down to, okay, so it's probably going to be in this group of illnesses that would explain this symptom. Okay. And then you treat that, and, this is probably more information you care to know, but you treat that, and if you're right, the patient gets better. If you're wrong, you give up and try another one. Okay. Then there is inductive reasoning. And this is where the MCAT gets its bread and butter. Inductive reasoning asks you to take facts and from them form generalized principles. And this is very tricky because of a host of logical fallacies that you've heard of, part to whole problem, slippery slope, ad hominem, attack the man, blah, 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 blah. All these different logical problems come into play, and the MCAT likes to toy with some of those issues. So inductive reasoning is where you really want to spend your time, effort, and energy in order to make the most sense of what the MCAT is asking you to understand. Okay, so now that you know what the MCAT is testing, next question comes, and how do you prepare for it? Well, I personally really like, as a way of understanding the whole process of reasoning, you've already heard people say, you need to read, and, blah, 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 read this publication, read this newspaper, read this magazine. Oh, the New York Times, the opinion pieces, blah, 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 the greatest thing. Oh, you got to read The Economist, whatever. So, I feel like I have started some of those beliefs, 15 years ago. But you know what I really like right now? I like it if students learn the program. I like it if you learn the basics of computer programming, and you pick a language. It doesn't have to be a complicated language. It could be something simple like JavaScript, or even learning how to work with HTML and CSS. Just those things alone will give you such feedback on structure of thought and how to understand, just what the step-by-step logic feels like, and how, if you will, rigid or specific you have to stay in order to really keep the facts straight and not overgeneralize to principles that go beyond the context of the passage. I think that is a great way of learning to do that.